Welcome back. Let's continue to this now. Israeli strikes have killed more than 300 people across the Gaza Strip this morning after the Israeli military said it was conducting extensive strikes on Hamas targets in the enclave. The latest incidents are the most violent air attacks since a ceasefire began on January 19. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office released a statement saying the military had been instructed to take strong action against the Hamas, a terrorist organization. Israeli military says campaigns in Gaza will extend beyond airstrikes. The Israeli military said it was prepared to continue attacks against Hamas commanders and infrastructure in Gaza for as long as needed and would expand the campaign beyond airstrikes. All right, now let's get the very latest with SABC News correspondent Giles Gibson, who is live for us in Tel Aviv. Giles, a very good afternoon to you. I mean, of course, notwithstanding the hundreds of lives that have been lost in this attack, we understand that multiple areas across Gaza have been hit. Just speak to us about the latest assault on Gaza by Israel.
Well, the first signs that the strikes were taking place came in the early hours of the morning local time when there were reports of loud explosions inside Gaza. You had international aid workers then saying that they were woken up by these explosions, the buildings that they were in starting to shake. And then really over the course of the early morning and after dawn, we saw airstrikes and also shelling from tanks into Gaza taking place in multiple locations. That then led to significant pressure on what's left of the healthcare facilities inside Gaza. There have been lots of photographs and videos coming out of crowds gathering around the entrances to hospitals inside Gaza, and the Palestinian Red Crescent saying that hospitals have just been completely overwhelmed by the hundreds of injured people, as well as the fatalities that you mentioned as well.
Fundamentally, a ceasefire that is just 2 months old has now been shattered. I mean, what's been the reaction globally? We do, of course, understand through reports that the UK has said that it will use its diplomatic influence to restore the ceasefire in Gaza, quote unquote, as soon as possible. What are you hearing?
There is certainly increasing international pressure for Israel to pull back from the brink, to not continue on with more airstrikes or even some sort of a ground offensive. We did have a statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office in the last few hours saying that Israel will, from now on, act against Hamas with increasing military strength. That is being seen as a sign, perhaps, that these airstrikes could continue in the coming days, or even that we could see ground troops returning to Gaza as well. We've actually had some reports that even after the airstrikes, that Hamas officials have still been in touch with mediators who've been working on negotiations in relation to the ceasefire agreement for several weeks now. Egypt, one of those mediators, urging both sides to show restraint and also saying that they should work towards a lasting agreement. So really the next few days are going to be absolutely critical, whether Israel expands this new sort of offensive, perhaps that's what we could call it if they do in the coming days, or if there is some sort of deal that could be done to sort of pull back from the brink.
And Giles, of course, just on that last part, in terms of, we know that this attack, came as a surprise. So I know everyone is concerned around when the next attack might be, given the fact that we are hearing of this increase in military strength. But just give us a sense, since you've been talking to aid workers, we know, of course, that aid has not been coming into Gaza for some time now. What is it looking like on a humanitarian front?
Yeah, that's the really important thing to point out, the fact that there's been this blockade on humanitarian aid imposed by Israel on humanitarian aid coming into Gaza since the start of this month, since we saw the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement expiring. So those hospitals that I was talking about, for example, they've been cut off from getting extra supplies for almost 3 weeks now by this blockade imposed by Israel, and they are now having to deal with hundreds of new patients, hundreds of injured people being brought to them by ambulances, the very few remaining ambulances inside Gaza. And of course, if these airstrikes continue, then that pressure is just going to mount and mount and mount on medical professionals still working inside Gaza.
Giles, thank you so much for that update. Really do appreciate it. Giles Gibson there, coming to us live from Tel Aviv. He is the SABC's news correspondent for us. All right, let's continue then with this particular topic. And we invite now Thembisa Fakude, who is a senior research fellow, Africa-Asia Dialogues. Thembisa, thank you so much for your time